Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner, broadcasting live from my grandmother's office in West Hartford, Connecticut. Unfortunately, I'm leaving crack of dawn tomorrow, so if anyone's here and wants to say what's up, can't do it live. Maybe next time. Today on this episode, we're going to go through match day 2 of the FIFA World Cup in Qatar, and we're gonna come out with some winners. Ultimately, an ultimate best bet. End of show. And I'll try to kind of go through, wrap up, give some extra detail on kind of what's changed based on the results of match day 1, which there are significant changes that might see how one read I had on the team coming into this tournament, they might be playing a little bit differently in terms of strategy and maybe personnel based on match day 1's results. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juice is offered almost every game you want to bet right up until game time, kickoff, all the first whistle, all those sort of things. Please follow the link found in the podcast description below to fund your account and use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So we're going to start with the first match, and that's Friday at 5 a.m. Eastern time in the U.S. It is Wales and Iran. Currently, Wales a quarter goal favorite with almost all the juice right now. Over under is 2. This is a game I thought was going to be a dead under, honestly, coming into this event. Now I don't feel so the same way because unfortunately Iran's heavy loss to England essentially means that they aren't going to win any goal differential type of ties. So they're going to have to go out and win. I do think they have a chance to beat Wales, though that first performance didn't give me a lot of hope. Wales on the other side are not used to controlling the ball. They're a pretty bad favorite, in my humble opinion. I do think they're great in one-offs against really good teams because they know how to defend and to counterattack. And ultimately came back from a 1-0 deficit against the U.S. and kind of looked in pretty shaky form that first half, but then controlled things in the second half, got their penalty off of a ridiculous decision made by Walker Zimmerman, and then ended up tying and walking out with a pretty important point against a team that was looking to be their biggest rival to get through. It looks like that's still the case, and now they get to face the lowest ranked team in the group, and they're going to need to win. A win puts a ton of pressure on the U.S., who finished Friday's match day with a match against England, and but from the Iran side, a draw here gets them to 1 point. Wales will be on 2. If the U.S. lose to England, they're on 1, which I guess would make England already clinched and certainly doesn't end the run for Iran whatsoever. But I do think they want to get a win because they're not going to win most likely any of the tiebreakers because goal differential is the first tiebreaker, actually not head to head. So Iran, normally how I'd expect them to play, to put sit in and put their whole defense behind the ball. I don't know that they're going to respect Wales to that level and play that defensively. You might know pretty early from when the match kicks off that they are playing that way. And I guess would be the status quo, what we would expect. However, I think things have changed a little bit based on the results of the first match day. And you probably see Wales playing a similar style. They expected to be the aggressor in this matchup in match day 2. They got their draw from the U.S., probably wanted to get a draw from England and then win Iran, and they would see themselves through. Of course, that isn't guaranteed, but I think they really got what they wanted in that first opening matchup where the U.S. were probably pretty disappointed. I think Wales, and like I said earlier, I'm not sure that they're a great favorite. And it's very possible that these two teams want to play defensively, and it's kind of a seesaw battle of who doesn't want to take more chances than the other. So I guess I still lean to Iran getting a quarter of a goal right now. It looks like that might climb to a half before kickoff. Certainly not guaranteed. The juice is pretty expensive right now. But also it looks like under sitting between 2 and 2.25. I think if anything I had to play on this match, it'd be under 2.25. And I do like that a fair amount, thinking more about if Iran are okay with that draw. And if they are internally, I think they probably play the same way. And look to beat the U.S. in the last match day. The problem is this is probably the match they circled as their most likely victory. Moving to the 8 o'clock window in Eastern time in the U.S., and that's Qatar, the host nation. They're at home against Senegal. Currently Senegal a 3/4 goal favorite. I don't know if I'd call them a road favorite technically, because a lot of these tournaments have so many fans from all over. But Senegal have given 3/4 of the goal with all the juice right now at Bet Online, potentially climbing to a 1-goal favorite by the time this kicks off. I wouldn't be shocked based on how poorly Qatar played in that opener, which everyone was watching. But then again, Senegal without Sadio Mane is an impaired side. I don't think they're that impaired, though. They played really well against Netherlands, and I thought could have won the game, had better chances, but then one great out of the box run from Cody Gakpo, and then a bad I guess another goal late, which is more affecting the gamblers than Senegal itself. But I'm still pretty into Senegal. I feel like the Senegal Ecuador match is going to decide this one, of course, unless points get out of hand. But Senegal probably see this as a match they want to win. I think they can do that. The over-under right now is 2.25, with the juice on the under side right now. So maybe over-under 2 is a little bit more accurate. I don't know where the Qatar goals come from. I think they're going to have real trouble scoring on Senegal. So anything less than 1, I'm not interested in. I think even at 1, I'm not interested either. Next, we'll go to the Netherlands and Ecuador. Currently, Netherlands on 3/4. They're a 3/4 goal favorite. A little bit more of the juice on the Ecuador side. Over/under is 2.5. I didn't think I would say this after the first match day, but I wasn't really impressed with Netherlands' offense, their setup, their lineup. It looks like Memphis Depay is really not healthy enough to play 90 minutes. I think he would be in there, no doubt, if he could. So that unfortunately makes me want to downgrade the Netherlands offense, and it looked like it was working perfectly against the Senegal until the 83rd minute opener, and then that late goal in the 99th minute, before we knew that there's going to be monstrous amounts of stoppage time in all of these matches. From where I sit with Ecuador, I believe them to be a counterattacking side that will sit in and defend. They did all of CONMEBOL. They didn't have to do it against Qatar because they took such an early lead. But I think it sets up perfectly for them because the Netherlands are going to be on the front foot. They're going to be pushing forward. And I don't really believe in Louis van Gaal at all. His success or lack of success, I think, speaks to kind of what type of manager he is. I do think the Dutch are really talented, but they're going to have a really tough battle, I think, with Ecuador to win by multiple goals, which currently it would require in order to take my full stake. Certainly I could lose what I'm risking, at least half of it, if they win 1-0 or by a single goal. But I also lean to the under 2.5. I feel like that's a lot backing the Ecuador defense, but I don't really see Netherlands running riot. I guess my big question is if the Netherlands do push forward so much that leaves them exposed to Ecuador, then can Ecuador potentially kill my under by scoring? I guess that's very possible, but ultimately it takes 3 goals to beat me here. 2 goals and I'm a winner, though a very juiced winner at this point right now. I lean to Ecuador getting that 3/4 of a goal and to that under 2.5. I'm very interested to see the health and whether Enner Valencia, their longtime talisman and leading scorer, penalty kick taker, if he's available for this one. If he's not, I imagine the line climbs a little bit and maybe hits that +1, which I'll be very interested in. I don't know that's a perfect trade-off or one that I want to make. I'd like to have Valencia in there. But I'm mostly back in Ecuador defense and style here, and that's what I like the most. So maybe +1 isn't the worst thing out there. For the last match on Friday, it's England and the USA. I already talked about that one quite a bit in the Wales-Iran discussion just a few moments ago. But England are 1-goal favorite. They have all the juice right now. Over-under is 2.5, juice to the over. Now, this is an interesting matchup because I would expect, I mean, I was getting promotional text from sports books trying to get me to bet USA against Wales. I think that pointed the right thing, though. The US certainly took a lead and looked like the right side for the first half. But I think that speaks to a lot of money coming in on the US and also, and I guess on the over would probably be what I would expect, though I feel like totals in this tournament have not been great so far if you're playing the over side. With that said, England 1-goal favorite, maybe climbing to 1.25. Looks like that's kind of the pivot point right now. You're juiced either way. But I don't love Gareth Southgate. I feel like he's too conservative for the England manager based on what talent he has on the team. They should be playing to win 2-0, not to hold on to 1-0s or trying to take 2-0 leads to kill off games. And if they go behind, or excuse me, if they let up an equalizer, they concede an equalizer, so what? But I just don't really like the way England plays. I feel like they did play very well against Iran, but I'm not sure that that's something that changes my sentiment on the team, especially after watching how poorly they were in the Nations League leading up to the World Cup, their last competitive events really before they got here. And the US, I mean, excuse me, before I get to the US, Gareth Southgate even mentioning in a post-game press conference after Iran about being concerned about the United States pressure makes me think that's what the USA are. Greg Berhalter does not seem to be very talented as a manager. I don't know how many United Americans there are. Maybe we should look to Pellegrino Matarazzo, who just got let off out of his job at Stuttgart. But ultimately, that doesn't matter for right now. We've got what we've got. That's Berhalter with really not a lot to do up front, which makes me think goals in this game are going to be really tough for the USA. To that end, I think I need at least +1 to play the United States, which I do have that here. I don't necessarily think that England are that much better than really anyone right now, besides maybe Iran and bottom teams of this tournament, at least not a nation like the US with so many people and a fair amount of talent. As I think anyone who listens to these podcasts understands, I mean, that's doing better in the pitch with me. You know that I don't love the United States offense, nor their strategy, nor a lot of what they do. And honestly, the Zimmerman penalty conceded against Wales was just hideous. But I do think the U.S. has a fighting spirit to them. Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams are just awesome in midfield. They're not really the goal scoring types, but I think they're good as an underdog to break up play, to get away with a few extra fouls before they get a yellow. And they're going to bring it to England and basically make sure that England is going to be tough because they're going to foul them hard. They're going to foul them a lot. And I think that's great and exactly what you want in an underdog on this type of stage. So I lean to the US getting that +1. I don't know really where this number is going to go because England are obviously very popular in the betting markets, and even if a casino is pointed towards United States customer base, they can't be that far off because there'll be a lot of arbitrage taken on from bettors across the world that are sophisticated in any sort of fashion. So lean to the US getting 1 goal, like them more at 1.25. And I do like the under of 2.5 or even 2 3/4 right now. I don't really think that there's a lot of scoring in this one. And I think the US can hang around. Now, moving to Saturday, we have Tunisia hosting Australia, currently, or not hosting. Tunisia are playing Australia on a neutral site in a desert, potentially in a stadium built of shipping containers. Tunisia are a quarter goal favorite with almost all the juice right now, and it is over under 2.25 juice to the under. This match started as Australia as the more favored team at Pick'em, but after getting beaten by France, I don't think it was that embarrassing. And after seeing Tunisia stall Denmark and survive with a goalless draw, somehow Tunisia are now a quarter goal favorite. I don't think the over-under has changed too much, but I don't think there are a lot of goals here. I do wonder about the strategy for these two teams in this matchup because ultimately this is where they can get their points. Tunisia with French next probably are a little bit with France next, excuse me. They're a little bit more desperate, I would think, than Australia, who are on 0 points, but have the Danes to finish out. That certainly is an easier task than France. And this ultimately will set the stage for the later Denmark and France match that we'll get to later in the show. I'm not really sure that these two teams have changed too much besides those results in the first matchup, and Australia deserves some credit for scoring a goal, whether a guy blew out his knee that allowed them to do so or not. And taking a lead against France is nothing to sneeze at, even though things were fortunate for them or for them as the Socceroos as a club or team. I don't know that I necessarily like Australia enough because I think they're just going to try to stall out and play defense the whole time. This looks like a match they'll try to win. But I think they're going to be more pragmatic than that. And I don't even necessarily think that a back and forth match with everyone taking chances. Yes, the XG will be higher, but I don't know that there's a lot of finishing on this pitch. I love the way I saw Tunisia defend against Denmark, though they were the inferior side and were probably looking just to steal a point. It will be a little bit more open than those matches, but I like under 2.25 right now a lot more than I like Australia, though I guess if I had to pick a side, that would be the way that I would lean. Probably shocking to nobody. Next, we'll go Poland and Saudi Arabia. Poland, a 3/4 goal favorite. The Saudi Arabian team with most of the juice right now. Over under is 2.25. And I don't know that there's a lot you could take from Poland's offense. They didn't do a lot against Mexico. The missed penalty certainly didn't help. But Saudi Arabia with the upset of the tournament was incredible. And I think that's going to put them in a place where you don't really want to touch them at this point. The juice hasn't changed too much. I think Saudis were getting bet a little bit more than they were initially, but this was a 3-quarter spread before the previous upset occurred, at least according to my notes. And I don't know that I've changed my opinion on Poland, and I think this is a really bad spot for Saudi Arabia, coming off the biggest win that got a public holiday declared in Saudi Arabia to celebrate, hopefully not with bone saws. But I think from where I sit with this one, I don't really trust Poland's offense, but I think there's a big difference between Poland and Saudi Arabia. If anything, I like the under 2.25 here. But I don't know that I'm rushing into that, because I feel like the Saudi Arabian side played a very high line against Argentina and was a big reason why they gave up 3 disallowed goals due to offside. I don't know that's a really great recipe, because I think that's going to be known here, and that worries me a lot. I'll put it that way. Next, we'll go France and Denmark. Big matchup for me. I mean, all cards on the table. I have Denmark to win the group and also to win the World Cup. Long shots, especially the World Cup one, but figured since it's out there, I'll address it. Don't want to talk my book too much. Definitely didn't like the start to the World Cup from Denmark. Didn't like that France won by 3 goals and that Denmark couldn't score. They had a couple of really good chances, and I think 1 goal that was disallowed. But this is the big matchup that going into this, I was hoping they'd both be on 3 points, and this would decide it, potentially a draw and then win goal differential. This is now a must win for Denmark to win the group. I don't think that the result in Tunisia, Australia is too big of a deal. I mean, if Tunisia win and get to 4 points, that could potentially cause some panic. But as a Denmark backer taking 3/4 of a goal here, unfortunately, they're going to be pushing for an equalizer no matter what. So I don't know that necessarily affects the handicap as much as it might affect the trying to win the group part. But I'm most interested in individual single day bets, and then worried about futures later, as I think they're a separate category. Ultimately still affecting the bottom line, but still. So France 3/4 goal favorite, over under is 2.25. The Danes beat France twice in the last 6 months. They've shown they can do it. They're confident, and I believe in them. I think France are a much weaker side now without Benzema, without Nkunku, without Luka Hernandez as well. And they're going to have to fill in at left back. They're so talented, that's not an issue. But I do think there's some cohesion that we could be worried about. And so that makes me very interested in the Danes. I was already that way, clearly, with my futures portfolio. But 3/4 of goal is too big to me. I feel like based on movement in this one, Denmark started as a 1/2 goal underdog way back when, fell as low as a 1/4 goal with a lot of juice on France. Can't really explain that movement, but probably was always a 1/2 goal and have climbed to 3/4 since then. I still like that. I also like under 2.25. I think the Danes' way to success here is to try to nick a 1-0 victory against France. They're going to play defensively. They're going to sit back, try to counter. They're going to limit France as much as they can and try to get a goal. I think that plays probably, or points to more to an under and a draw, which you'll pay 268 on for $100 wins 268. But I like both those Danes under and Danish side in this one. Last one we'll go on Saturday is Argentina and Mexico. Argentina currently a 1-goal favorite, over under 2.5. Argentina, they have to bounce back. They're in big trouble, because who knows what's going to happen in the Saudi Arabia-Poland match. If Saudi Arabia win, then Argentina can't tie them. So that's bad. They will at least, at the very least, not win the group. But it was a pretty big loss, and especially bad against the worst team in the group. And I think Mexico, I mean, they had so many fans there for the Poland match. I don't think that'll change for Argentina. And so it's going to be a big, pretty split crowd. So I don't think you can give Argentina that credit for the huge fan base that follows them, which is kind of a big deal. Mexico with more juice right now on the +1, more juice on the under as well. And I think that speaks to Mexico's struggles to score goals. They have a lot of possession. They know how to use the ball in CONCACAF play, and they did it a lot against Poland as well. I think they're going to control the ball and try to score, but it's going to be very hard. So it's almost like a correlated under and Mexico +1 play that kind of works both with you and also against you, because Mexico are going to struggle to score, and I think they're going to possess a lot of the ball, which will keep Argentina from having it, which will make it harder for them to score. Though Argentina on a counterattack look very, very scary. At the same time, I'm not sure pace is their really best asset at this point with their current roster, with Messi so old, Di Maria aged, and ultimately Lautaro Martinez doesn't seem to be a pace guy as much, though he's certainly great on the counterattack for Inter. I like Mexico. I think that they're going to give Argentina a really tough match. And I like that under 2.5, as I've already spoken to. I do think there's some extra motivation here for Argentina, but I don't think it's more than the Copa Mundial, which is so important to try to get Messi a win before he retires, at least internationally. We'll move to Sunday, Japan and Costa Rica. Currently, Japan a 1.25 goal favorite. And this one moved a lot. Big upset over Germany certainly gets a lot of eyes onto the land of the rising sun. Costa Rica, on the other hand, with the 7-0 loss to Spain, that was the worst match for me, worst result of this campaign or this World Cup tournament, match day 1. But we're going to bounce back. And I do think there's some value in Costa Rica here getting 1.25 goals, because it's climbed from a half is what initially I had looked at and saw. Over under 2.5 also has climbed a little bit. I think Japan are a perfect side to predict against the best teams in the world, like Germany, a team that sits in counterattacks, and they did it beautifully, nearly flawlessly, besides a really panic stations tackle attempt where the goalkeeper fouled David Raum for Germany and gave a penalty early. But I thought Japan executed exactly what you wanted, and that makes it a little bit concerning for me to go against Japan because they do what they want to do. They have a smart plan that happens every World Cup. I feel like no one respects Japan, and you should, because they even have better attackers than they usually do. So Japan, I don't really expect to concede to Costa Rica. I do worry that the Costa Rica performance against Spain does change strategies a little bit. They know they have to outpoint everyone because they're not going to do anything on goal differential. But both of these teams see this as their chance to get 3 points. Japan already on 3 points. This is a huge, huge way for them to go through. Though ultimately, if they get to 4, they're still ahead of Germany going into that last match with a victory over Spain. And it's going to be really hard for Germany to get through. So I don't know necessarily what to say about this one. And certainly this is the way for Japan to jump to 6 points and almost make them uncatchable and to essentially confirm their place in the knockout stage. I don't think that'll, though, take them out of a pragmatic style that they always play that will then go uber aggressive and leave them in danger of Costa Rica beating them. I do think that's what Costa Rica will likely need to win. So I guess I lean to under 2.5 more so than that 1.25 that Costa Rica are currently getting from Japan. But I do think that number is extremely inflated, and there's some value based on that loss, the lopsided loss to Spain. Belgium, Morocco are next. Currently, Morocco a 0.5 goal underdog, and don't have juice in front of me because they're currently a 1/4 goal underdog on BetOnline, and is a monstrous plus number at plus 120. Overrun currently 2.25. And I was impressed by Morocco. They have a lot of attacking talent, but they played defensively a lot better than I was expecting in their opener against Croatia. Belgium, on the other hand, got controlled throughout by the worst team in the group with the longest odds, Canada, but ultimately took one counterattack, scored, because Michy Batshuayi is so incredible for the international team and can never do it in club. It's amazing, his form as an international, but I digress. I don't necessarily believe in Belgium. I feel like they've had a target on their back for how old their center backs are, and I don't like how they were basically not respected by Canada and barely made them pay. Kevin De Bruyne looked old. I got to say, he doesn't look old for Man City, but he certainly did for Belgium in that one. Maybe it was the pace of Canada that came into play here, but Morocco's got a lot of speed. Achraf Hakimi is probably one of the fastest men in the world. And I think Morocco are going to play defensively really well against Belgium. Still up front, starting as Eden Hazard is just not someone who's ever really contributed in the last few years to Real Madrid or to Belgium. Romelu Lukaku, I think, is not yet close to starting, at least, or playing even. So I don't know where the goals come from for Belgium. Their defense worries me. So I like Morocco getting that 1/2 of the goal. I also like the under, as I don't really, I feel like I've changed pretty significantly based on that first match, just my opinion of Belgium and their offense. I certainly think they can score, but I don't know that they can get to 2. And I think Morocco can score as well against a tired, aged Belgium back line that's playing a lot of games on short rest here because these World Cup matches come up so thick and so fast. I think I lean under as well. But there are some problematic areas where I don't know that Morocco's defense is as good as it looked against Croatia. I also feel like the more teams play together, though, their offense improves, their defense should improve at the same type of rate. But probably the defenders, I think, would get a little bit better. So that makes me like that under 2.25, even a little bit more. Next, we move Croatia and Canada. Croatia, a quarter goal favorite with all the juice right now. Over under is 2.25, juice to the over. So Croatia, unfortunately, their midfield looked great against Morocco, but it didn't do much to put the ball in the net. I think they had a disallowed goal for offside, but that's not enough against Morocco's side. Ultimately, their, I guess, biggest challenger to advance until you saw Canada play, not really respecting Belgium whatsoever, but still going after it and playing really well, I thought. I like I like Canada here as the underdog. I feel like this is looking like it's going to climb to a half a goal underdog where a draw will be enough for me to win a bet. I think Canada are going to be on the front foot a little again. If they did it to Belgium, I imagine they will to Croatia. That does worry me a little bit more because I thought they're going to be more pragmatic like they were in CONCACAF, but I think they kind of are feeling themselves a little bit. And honestly, it looked like everything was working out, going in the right direction until the Batshuayi goal out of completely against the run of play, as the announcer said. And then they went to halftime and just never get an equalizer. Had already missed or had a penalty saved. So a lot of things went wrong. Canada deserved a lot better. But that, I think, sets them up well here for this match with Croatia. They ultimately were a half a goal underdog, climbed as high as 3/4, and then have come back to a quarter. I think that speaks to the play that Canada put out there, and I really liked what I saw from them. I don't necessarily know that I believe in Croatia to score a lot of goals. I think that's a big problem for them in this tournament. It has been a little while. They didn't really seem to have issues with that in the European qualifying windows to get to the World Cup, but they still, Kramaric has not had a great year for them. I feel like they were playing, Vlasic up front. I don't know where that came from. I think that just speaks to an issue at striker, which makes me lean to Canada, I think, more than Croatia in this one, especially when it hits that half of a goal, though I do lean to under 2.25 as well. Next, we go Spain and Germany. This is a big match on Sunday, and now it means a lot more to Germany than it does to Spain. Currently, Spain are a quarter goal favorite. Over-under is 2.75. And Spain did beat Germany 6-0 not too long ago. That's definitely been remembered. These teams seem to play each other a lot. And it's a little surprising to me, though, to see Spain now as a quarter goal favorite, because all the juice currently on Germany. Maybe this falls back to pick 'em, but I think based on what we saw in that ugly loss to Japan, I think this line probably stays here. Spain was always favored slightly to win the group, and they had a great performance against Costa Rica as well. Don't want to forget about that one. But I think these teams are very similar. And I respect Germany still, even though they had that awful loss to Spain, embarrassing one that pretty much forced Joachim Löw out the door. But I just don't think there's a huge gap between these two teams. I think Spain ultimately see a draw with Germany as a stellar result because they have they're already 8 goals ahead in goal differential. And I guess they'd be worried about potentially not winning the group to Japan, but they get to face them in their last match. So Spain's probably pretty comfortable with the draw here. I think Germany will be pushing a little bit harder. That definitely makes me a little bit more worried in the underdog, but I would rather have the team attacking late to try to score a goal to win versus the one that's kind of sitting there trying to fend off the attack. With that said, Spain controls so much of the ball. I'm not sure how much Germany will have with it, but I do want to see the German pace on the wings, like Leroy Sané, Serge Gnabry on the wings, running at Spain's defenders who are older and not as talented as you'd expect from a Spanish national team. I don't know how that necessarily makes me feel. I think I lean more towards under 2.75. I think Spain's going to try to take a lot of the air out of the ball and pass it around the whole time. That might be my stronger lean, but I also lean to Germany getting that quarter. Moving to Monday, Cameroon and Serbia. Cameroon, a 3/4 goal underdog. I do want to see injury stati for Kostic, as Filip Kostic. He's so important on the wing. Also, just anyone in general. Cameroon, I thought, were disappointing today, but played really well defensively. Were locked tight against Switzerland. That single goal loss paid off the under, but lost the side, at least half of the side. That's how I was going to play it, but I ended up laying off and a little disappointed because that would have been some return on investment. But it is what it is. I guess avoided a loss, which is nice. And of course, those scary moments when you're trailing by a goal and you're throwing a lot forward. With that said, for this matchup, I thought Serbia played Brazil really tightly. Getting out with a 2-0 loss wasn't great, but it ultimately put them in a great position to still move forward. But this is a match they expect to win to get 3 points. And I think they're going to try to go all out for it. I think they're a little bit too aggressive offensively, and that might play into Cameroon's hands. Eric Choupo-Moting is still a great goal scorer who's in great form. Karl Toko Ekambi has a lot of talent, and I felt like the Cameroon defense was better, besides that really one big mistake with Briel Embolo, who slotted in a very easy goal. I thought Onana was very strong, a strong leader at goalkeeper. And I came away, despite a 1-0 loss, I thought Cameroon were still pretty good and deserved a little bit better. Now, for this line, I mean, I like the 3/4 and I like under 2.25 because I just don't know that I see a lot of goals in any of these matches, and specifically in this one. I think in terms of the situation, both have no points, so a draw doesn't really do either of them well, though I think both will expect Brazil to beat Switzerland. And that means that if they can get to 3 points, then potentially they'll be fighting with just Switzerland to get through. So everyone's going for this one. There might be a little more offense that way because I think the draw won't feel good enough. But this is ultimately the first matchup of that group. I believe it's Group G. Don't quote me on that because it's late, doing late night right now. But I think from where I sit, I don't know that I trust the Serbian offense to be required to win by more than a goal to take my full unit. I think there's a good chance this one ends in a draw and Cameroon would pay out. Also like that under 2.25, which looks like it's climbing to 2.5 probably before this kicks off. South Korea and Ghana currently a pick 'em. South Korea with all the juice right now. Over under is 2, also juice to the over. I was really impressed with Ghana. They'd done so well for 60 something minutes until Cristiano Ronaldo dove. And then everything went crazy. The under got in big trouble, but Ghana and then lost. But Ghana fought back and somehow got that late cover, which was huge. Sad I didn't play it. I just went under in that one. But I don't know where necessarily goals come from in this one. South Korea want to counterattack and use their pace. I thought Heung-min Son probably deserved man of the match, and they could have won that match. Definitely South Korea could have, but they did not. And unfortunately they're on 1 point, Ghana are on none. And Portugal are on ahead with 3, but ultimately there's not really a great situation there with Uruguay on 1 point as well. So this group is wide open. I think that a draw is not a terrible result here, especially since the best can happen is one of the teams getting to 4 or to 3 points, or to 6, I guess, potentially if Portugal win again in the nightcap against Uruguay. But I don't know necessarily that I trust South Korea to score goals, besides on the counterattack. I think Ghana have shown, even in African qualifying, they were going to be defensive. They did it against the Ivory Coast, the Cote d'Ivoire, also against Nigeria, and it worked well. It got them to this World Cup despite a really tough route to get there. And I don't really see South Korea's offense being a worthy favorite. Currently at Pick'em, not much for me to do there, but surprisingly, none of these matches have really been Pick'em so far. But when South Korea get to a quarter goal favorite, as the line currently suggests, I think that's a buy price for me on Ghana. And I also like that under, as I see no reason to play any unders early because most of these seem like they're climbing with a lot of public money coming in. But I like Ghana as an underdog, and I like that under as well. Brazil and Switzerland, here's a matchup where I'm just very scared to fade Brazil. I thought the line was reasonable, I think, for Serbia. They had some absentees today, but as a 1.25 goal favorite, I think that's probably fair. The Swiss are really good defensively, though, so it's tempting for me to play that one, as I think that they can keep Brazil quiet because they have a pretty solid defense and are used to playing defensively against the best teams in Europe. But Jogo Bonito is really serious. Richarlison, when he's hot, he is terrifying. Even had some friends of mine saying, why are they starting Richarlison today? And then we saw with his 2 goals, one of them being a spectacular like overhead scissor kick or sideway volley off his own trap. I mean, that was incredible. But over under is 2 3/4. It's really hard for me to expect Brazil not to score, though I think Switzerland is going to be stuck defending this whole time. And I don't trust Brielle Embolo to have that many open chances against Brazil. I mean, watching Vargas run and just mess everything up the whole time for Switzerland. Xherdan Shaqiri is not young. I don't know where goals come from for Switzerland. Maybe even under for the Switzerland team total. That gets a little bit weird if Brazil scoring a bunch. So maybe under 2 3/4 is the best way to go for this one. I don't know that I necessarily want to fade Brazil, though above a goal, I do like a good defense like Switzerland. And last but not least, before we get to the best bets, Portugal and Uruguay. Portugal, a half a goal favorite right now. Juice is completely split down the middle. Over under is 2 1/4, and that juice is nearly split down the middle, a little bit leaning towards over. I wasn't that impressed with Portugal. They didn't do anything until the Cristiano Ronaldo penalty, which was very, very suspect in my humble opinion. I just can't really catch a lot of breaks with referees at this point. But I don't know that they are playing a great way. I mean, things changed when they started making substitutions. I don't think Ronaldo should be on that team. On the team is fine. Maybe he's a late substitute, but Rafael Leao, keeping him on the bench is just crazy, like ludicrous to me. Uruguay's offense was not great today. I thought it looked a lot better with Cavani in there. They had better chances than South Korea, I guess, but that's probably because they had more of the ball. And I felt like South Korea was taking, I mean, the chances they were creating were more dangerous ultimately, despite having less of the ball. I think it's going to be a very defensive matchup. So that makes the half of a goal look really good. And also that under 2 1/4 look really good. I think Uruguay are not the same offense they were in the past, but I still feel like based on the name value of the players they have on their side, that makes them look a little bit better and their totals end up a little bit higher. So I think I like under 2 1/4 better than I like that half of a goal. But I ultimately like both. I think Uruguay have talent that can bother Portugal, and I still don't know that I'm necessarily sold on the Portuguese just yet. So I like that Uruguay plus 1/2 and also the under 2 1/4. So we are 36 minutes in. I feel like I'm always around here for World Cup match day talk. So thanks for staying with me. The real underscore G Warner. You can find me there on Twitter. Make sure you do the underscore. I heard that I need to enunciate that better. Sorry, the real underscore G Warner. You're probably already seeing this on Twitter, but thanks. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave me a review. Give me 5 stars, something like that. I've been getting a ton more views. I appreciate everyone sharing with your friends. And it doesn't hurt that I had a really good match day one. I'm hoping to continue that. Or if you're on YouTube, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm not close. So if you got a little bit of time or you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Would love it because ultimately that's how we get more content is once that makes me want to do 12:30 a.m. podcast when I have a flight in 5 hours. But or if you're on Spotify, same sort of rules apply as Apple Podcasts. Thank you for listening there. I know it's not a ton of you, but I appreciate it. Wherever you're consuming this content, Overcast, anywhere else, thank you so much for doing it. I think my best bet ultimately for this episode, match day 2, the ultimate best bet from me, the real underscore G Warner on Twitter, is I'm going to give out, so I guess I might as well narrow down the list for everybody, just in case you want the quick summary of this pod. So I like Iran, I like under. Don't really have a feeling on Qatar or Senegal. I do like Ecuador and under against the Netherlands. And then I like the US and under. Australian under I like on Saturday. Plus, man, I don't know what to do with Saudi Arabia. Probably nothing there. I love Denmark. I like the under there too, but I think I like Denmark's side better. The +1 on Mexico is a huge number for Argentina, even though Argentina surely will be angry. I don't know that I necessarily believed in their offense in CONMEBOL qualifying either. I also like that under 2.5. Costa Rica, if you're a value person or just an overreaction, like a week 2 NFL player that just bets against the surprising results in week 1, that certainly would lead you towards Costa Rica. If that interests you, 2.5 as the under looks decent as well. Like Morocco as an underdog against Belgium, that under there too. Canada, Croatia, underdog under. Germany, underdog and under. Just going to keep singing that out loud. Also like Cameroon a little bit. Not sure necessarily I love that total as much there in that one because it seems like a lot of offensive players on the pitch. South Korea, I'm interested in going against them if they move to a favorite. We'll see if that happens for Ghana, but I lean under in that one. And then I really like Switzerland defense, maybe not so much against Brazil, because I feel like those matches can get really ugly. And when Brazil take that 1-goal lead, then 2-0, like it happened today, is fairly likely. And then Uruguay, I like them and the under in their match as well. And I think for my best bet, I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path here. I think that Argentina have looked, unfortunately, with that collapse, I think they're going to be really nervous in this matchup because they've got a lot to play for. I think the Mexicans are going to use their crowd and they're going to make it really tough on Argentina. And I love that +1, that insurance goal in my pocket. Mexico will be disappointed with the 1-0 loss, 2-1 loss, something like that. But I'll get out of there as a free movie. And I like that for Mexico. So I'm going to take the Mexicans +1 against Argentina, the best bet for this podcast. And I think that'll do it for this episode. You'll see me back another pregame.com podcast going through all the matches. Should be out either tonight or tomorrow morning. Check into that and let me know if you got anything else you want me to cover. Hopefully the bad beats in college basketball will stop. But anyway, follow me on Twitter, _G Warner. We'll talk to you soon.